I have the scar tissue from fielding questions about intel in the lead up to a war. And if I learned anything, it's that you only get one chance to set the record straight after you've created a muddle. They're on day 8, the Secretary of State and the President of the United States saying drastically different things, including this from the president in the last hour. This was the president on Laura Ingraham, now being even more specific, saying there was intel that 4 embassies were at risk. Let me play that.
Do they have large-scale attacks planned for other embassies? And if those were planned, why can't we reveal that to the American people? Wouldn't that help your case?
I can reveal that I believe it would have been 4 embassies.
Ashley Parker.
I mean, the problem with this is that we really don't know what to believe out of this administration for a couple of reasons. The first reason is a blanket macro reason, which is that for 3 years now, the president has sometimes said things that are true and just as frequently said things that are not true. So there's not a lot of reliable narrators. And then to go to the micro, just looking at this, you have people like Secretary Pompeo, top national security officials, going up to Capitol Hill for a classified briefing with senators, which is the very place where they're supposed to be able to reveal these specifics, and saying it's too classified to reveal them. And then you have the president sharing those same specifics on Fox News, as you just played at the rally in Toledo last night that I was at. And then you have this other murky thing, which is this is a president who quite proudly often dismisses his own intelligence communities, and they haven't been able to answer why do you not believe your own people when it comes to Russia election interference, but you do believe them on these imminent attacks. And then there also finally has not been a very clear explanation of just what the definition of imminent is.
Anna Palmer, we can work on that for them. But here's Daniel Dale on the shifting explanations. One, over 2 days, Trump has gone from 1, not mentioning embassies, to 2, saying it was the embassy in Baghdad, to 3, saying it was embassies, plural, to 4, saying it was 4 embassies. It would appear, I thought it was pretty dramatic when Mike Lee came out of that briefing and called it the worst briefing on a military action he's ever seen in his career. Democrats even harsher, calling it sophomoric, and attacking the briefers, who were none other than the American Secretary of Defense, our director of the CIA, the Secretary of State, and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. What is sort of the bubbling state of play on Capitol Hill among Democrats and Republicans?
Yeah, I think it was pretty stunning what Mike Lee did, coming out of there oftentimes in lockstep with the president on policy issues, and his frustration bubbling over there. Kind of what Democrats have been saying for the past couple of days. I think they're very frustrated by this changing narrative, the fact that they feel as though they didn't get a clear sense of why the president chose to move now. I think that's why you had so many Democrats kind of vote for the war powers resolution to try to rein back some of that power. But I think for the most part, Republicans are still sticking with this president. You have those outliers, like you mentioned, Matt Gaetz out of Florida, who oftentimes is an ally of the president, but now on this issue has decided that he believes pretty strongly that Congress needs to have a vote on whether the U.S. goes to war or not. But he is the outlier. You do not see a lot of Republican members of Congress in the Senate or the House choosing to break with his president yet.
I know that everyone that's known Trump a long time, Rev, knows that he's a liar. I also talked to someone yesterday who said that the twin pillars inside Trump's mind have nothing to do with American foreign policy or the interests of the state. They're his paralyzing fear of being revealed as being ignorant. He doesn't read. He doesn't know a lot about world history. And an almost equal sort of fear of leading the country into war, that he really is afraid of that. He was afraid of serving himself, and he ran in South Carolina and other places as a non-interventionalist. Where does that leave us?
It leaves us in a very dangerous position. And when one says you don't know if he's telling the truth or not, it's the expression, err on the side of caution, err on the side of saying he's lying, because usually he is. I think when you look at the fact that you're now in the mode where he is somewhere between trying to cover the fact that he is ignorant on foreign affairs and on military action. So that's why we're going. We may be up to 6 embassies that we're under threat by the time we end this show.
Right.
Because he's trying to act as though he knew what he was doing. Then you have Pompeo, who makes Rudy Giuliani look consistent, because we've already redefined lying. Now we're redefining what imminent means. I mean, it is a very precarious place that the American people find themselves in, not to mention that we're looking at the fact that there may have been an unintended missile that killed 176 people that came out of all of these string of events. I don't think anyone intended that, but it was started because of the killing of the of General, and I think that those events should be of real concern to us. Where's the moral concern that we have people that have died in a plane crash, rockets being blasted, and a president that gives 5 different stories a day in the middle of this, and we act like the human lives are just expendable? I think we're in a very dangerous place.
I just want to point out, I mean, Anna's right that in terms of numbers, Matt Gaetz, is it Getz or Gates? The AE always throws me. Gates and Mike Lee may be outliers in terms of the fact that there aren't very many, but they are the precise ideological matches for an effort to change the regime in Iran. So the fact that they are speaking out publicly against this administration's rollout of their action is staggering just on the right. They are sort of wholly owned subsidiaries of the Mike Pompeo, John Bolton view of the world, including their view and their pursuit of regime change in Iran.
I admire the fact that they took the constitutional privilege which is given to the House and the Senate and Congress to declare war. That's an important thing that they did. I want to take a step back, and one of the things that disturbs me about this is, and I'm going to scratch your scar tissue here, is that this kind of this revival of the Bush doctrine of preventive assassination, which was discredited by the Iraq War.
Let's use the words, because Defense Secretary Esper used it in a briefing at 3 p.m. on the Thursday of the attack. He used the word preemption, and that's what we're talking about.
I never thought I would hear those words.
Me neither. And I saw it in a New York Times story. It posted at 3:40 on Thursday, the day of the attack. Mark Esper all but foreshadowing this imminent, preeminent attack.
So it's one of the most reviled doctrines of modern history. But the other revival is this strange obsession with Iran that goes back 40 years that neoconservatives have, that somehow more than Russia, more than China, more than anybody else, that Iran is provoking instability in the world and it is an existential threat to the United States, which of course it is not. So part of the thing, and I guess we'll get to that story, the Washington Post story about the targeting.
No, take us there. Go ahead.
So the Washington Post did a terrific story about the targeting of another Revolutionary Guard leader, the financer of it, Abdul Reza Shalai, in Yemen. And by the way, he was also sanctioned by the Obama administration in 2011. But the fact that this is part of a seemingly wider plot almost to undermine the Quds Force and the Revolutionary Guard in Iran goes back to this idea of this 40-year-old idea that Iran is somehow a threat to us. Again, when the Ayatollah came to power in 1979, he did have an ideology of, I want to undermine the West, I want to undermine democracy around the world. But Iran is a far different place from the way it was in the 1980s. And the underpinning of Obama's reaching out to Iran to sign the Iran deal was this idea, which we weren't supposed to talk about at the time, that not only were we going to end their pursuit of a nuclear weapon, but we would bring Iran back into the family of nations again. And Trump has gone back to this discredited view of preventive assassination, peremptory action, this discredited view that Iran is this terrorist power that it was in the 1980s. And to your point about him being ignorant of history, it's like he's actually siding with people whose points of view have been absolutely discredited, in part because he doesn't even understand what it is.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.